When you're younger, so I figured that would be yes.
Okay, here we go. We're going live. So good morning, everyone. We're glad that you joined us. For those of you I have not met, I'm Debbie Gilbert, and I'm the VP of Business Development for the Green Season Group Landscape Company. I'm also a past president for IFMA, and we're very excited that IFMA has decided to do these online classes to help everyone get their CEUs during this time where we can't meet and come together and have classes. So today you're going to be taught a class on sustainable landscape services that will help with LEED. And it's being taught by the president and founder of our company, Derek Meek, and the director of landscape design, Paul Bradford. So I'm going to turn it over to them and let them give you a little background on themselves and then get right into the class.
Hey guys, like Debbie said, I'm Derek Meek and the founder and president of Green Season. I've been in the landscape business for about 30 years, and I think in landscape years that's like 150. So it's been a long time. Green Season, been here for 20 years. We got started really with just a mower and have grown the business tremendously and to where we are today. But we do a lot of new construction, both commercial and residential. So our background is extensive when it comes to landscape construction services.
I'm Paul Bradford. I'm the director of landscape design here at Green Season. I've been in business about 38 years. I got my degree at the University of Georgia, go Dogs, and just pleased to be here and hope we can teach you something or the other this morning.
So today's discussion, really, we want to go over obviously LEED and probably from more of a practical side, not so much getting to a lot of the details. It'll be an overview to talk about how LEED can be used in existing buildings, not so much in new construction. Obviously, we'll be talking about some of that, but what you can do today to renovate an existing property potentially, how you can, when you're doing that, how you can implement some LEED practices to be more environmentally friendly. So some of the things are turning rainwater and runoff to your advantage, saving money with less irrigation, enhancements, lighting, especially with LED technology, and then open air workspace, the new norm.
One of the techniques that you can use in your landscape is using bioswales or rain gardens. Rain gardens are really just taking an area that's already depressed in the landscape. It's already a little bit of a low area that may not have really good flow through drainage.
And who's the accountant for Marketplace at Mill Creek?
More expensive structures by simply basically digging that out, putting a special kind of soil that's absorbent, and it becomes basically a sponge. It takes the water, it can re-enter it into the groundwater, or it can pass through. Some of it will pass through, but in a controlled way. So you've actually cleaned the water. You've done something great for the environment, and you can beautify those things. They can really be an attractive element in your landscape if done correctly.
And I would say with rain gardens, another thing to consider is if you have a property where you really can't exit the water, and you have to retain it somewhere, there's not a detention pond or it's a small area that water just always stands. You have some options instead of it being a kind of a muddy mess all the time, to capture that water from a hard surface, taking it through a swale, exiting it into a bioswale or a rain garden, and then planting it so that it does become somewhat ornamental and environmentally friendly.
Cisterns is another way to actually uh, retain your water and reuse it. You can actually repurpose that water, because if you collect it and save it, you can basically pump it back out through a drip irrigation system, some filtration, and deliver it to your plants directly in a very efficient way. So that's become something more and more popular, is harvesting that rain through a system and then just delivering it to your plants.
Yeah, one of the challenges of trying to implement a cistern system, or a system that recaptures existing surface water and then reusing it for irrigation, is that your irrigation system during the construction process was probably set up to use city water, and there's a certain amount of capacity that the zone needs. And sometimes trying to generate a cistern large enough that's going to capture enough water to reuse it. So the best time to use cistern system probably from the beginning during the construction process with your root pump testing. Pervious sidewalks and entryways. This is another great way that you can recapture surface water instead of having your regular concrete. There can be pervious concrete, which I don't know if you guys have seen that before, but it has small holes in it that allows the water to permeate through the concrete and be absorbed into the soil. That's a great thing if you have an existing concrete drive or an existing concrete walkway. Pulling that out, putting this in to allow the water to permeate, cost prohibitive. But if you have a new area that you're trying to redo, irrigate, that would be an option that you want to consider.
And as simple as just certain types of gravel that are walkable, you can actually install those. If you were to do, for example, an outdoor workspace, which we'll talk about later, you can actually install anything from a pea gravel to a pervious paver, which is, you've probably seen these where they have the concrete pavers and they have gaps in between and let it go through. And again, you're recharging the groundwater and you're creating space that's attractive.
And the purpose of these items is really how we can better use rainwater and how we can capture that and use it in plants. And if we're looking at LEED, that's one of the large components when it comes to the point system, is utilizing or reutilizing a lot of what nature provides. And we'll talk a little bit more about the types of plants that can be used. So you really try to minimize the amount of water that your property needs as a whole. So saving money with less irrigation. Let's face it, water is expensive.
It's getting more expensive all the time.
Yeah, and they're finding creative ways to tax you more and more dollars on your water. So what can you do with, especially with an existing property that has existing infrastructure in place? Well, technology has really advanced quite a bit since probably just the last 10 years, even with smart controllers that now you can use Wi-Fi, which then allows you to use weather stations that are more local. The systems are a lot more affordable now. It also allows your provider to adjust those systems based on the actual needs of the property. So that's come a long, long way. Drip and micro sprays. If I have a system that's existing that is a larger system and my plants are older than, say, about 5 years, more than likely those plants don't need you. And a lot of those areas can be turned down or turned off or even renovated by changing from a spray system, which is an above ground irrigation or irrigating process, versus something that drips directly around the plant, which is probably the most effective and efficient way to water your plants. There are some challenges with drip, but just maintaining it is one of the main things. Obviously, with the drip system, you don't see it pop up and working. Normally, if you have issues, you're going to see your plant starting to decline. And then lastly, an audit, turning zones off. So again, many older plants or trees, things like that, don't need you, and you can turn those zones off altogether. Now, I would say that turf zones, if the system has been installed properly and it has isolation, meaning that it's only watering specific plants or specific areas, because all of those plants or grasses need a different type of water. Not type of water, but amount of water. And so with turf, because it's mowed every week, it has chemicals that go down with weed control, fertilization, you're going to need to continue to water those areas more frequently and on a regular basis.
Planting enhancements, it involves a lot of different things, but fundamentally, if we plant plants that are for this region that naturally want to be here, native plants, you're going to do a lot better off. They're going to have some great survival skills just on their own. They're from this area. They take the soils, they take the heat, they take the cold. And if we plant those type of plants, you're going to have great survivability. Many beautiful plants. You can make some great aesthetic designs with these. Green screens is another example of using plants. Basically, you can build a wall using different types of plants, whether they're vines or just any kind of plants that will survive in that vertical structure. To screen buildings, and especially the hot sides, the southwest side of the building, for example, can really benefit and really save you some air conditioning if you're able to position that in the right spot. It's a great retrofit item.
Yeah, it does a great job of sound buffering as well. So if there's an outdoor space that you're trying to make a bit more private, even in a commercial environment, park-like setting, that's a great option to create some separation, both from a sound and visual perspective. But like Paul was saying, on the native and drought-tolerant plants, the reason those are important is because if you minimize the amount of water your site needs, then those are more lead points. Can you do that with an existing landscape? I would say you could, but the likelihood of you really getting anything out of that investment other than the aesthetic improvements, or if there's been decline, things like that, there's not going to be much benefit there. So LED lighting, this is very similar to the irrigation. Just 10 years ago, I don't know if you guys remember, the first LED lights came out, and they were those really bright white or blue color that looked like you were kind of at a gas station. And so it was really didn't provide the effect, I think, that incandescent bulbs do, that romantic feel that really highlighted the property. But that's changed a lot. So LEDs have a number of different temperatures that you can use that enhance the look of the property, but they also provide a lot of security. So there's a lot of points that can be had and power that can be saved by just retrofitting some of the existing lantern fixtures that you have with the new LED bulbs. If you have an area that's not lit, or some area you're thinking about lighting, starting off with some with LED fixtures would also be a much better idea. They last longer. They don't need as much care. There's just a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to the LED system. You had mentioned something about the light pollution.
Yeah, it's a way to get, again, some lead points is to help with this dark sky movement, which is basically that you don't want to add any light pollution to the sky. You want to keep the skies dark. You've heard about this, where you in an urban environment you can't look up at the sky and see the stars anymore, not very easily. So this would help having these kind of pictures that have the hooded down type of tops to them, so the light is only allowed to go down. This can also benefit in getting lead points, and it's just a good thing to do for the environment.
Yeah, more responsible.
Yeah.
So, open air workspace, the new norm. So let's face it, COVID is not going to go away, and who knows, what the next pandemic may look like. So the idea of maximizing the space becomes more and more important. Not just the interior, but what can we do on the exterior to provide some workspace that's functional, which in the past has always been very difficult because there's been limitations with Wi-Fi, there's limitations with charging, there were limitations with seating spaces. A lot of that has changed, with solar, with all the different advances in technology. Those things that in the past cost so much money now are more affordable, and you can really take an outdoor living environment and make it self-sustainable. Meaning there's not a lot of effort that has to go into making it run on its own.
Yes, it's becoming, again, the new norm that we're seeing people ask us for innovative solutions and bringing some of their own, just from their own research. And we've been asked by a couple of folks now.
Yeah.
And it's not something, again, that's brand new. It's just that we feel like things are kind of coming together between the let's do some more social distancing, let's do some more real green stuff instead of just giving it lip service. So we're seeing this really take off, and we'd like to be on the forefront of that.
Yeah, and I think not only is it responsible, like you said, Paul, but there are a lot of benefits from the owner's perspective. How can I create an amenity that is going to serve me in the future? Can this space be considered in the square footage that the CDC recommends when it comes to social distancing? And then what can I do to reduce my costs? So I'm going to make a big investment into an outdoor space. What does that mean from a reduction in costs on the landscape side or other surfaces that are normally required in an outdoor space? And those are all things to be considered. And I would also say your ROI on this, a lot of landscape is obviously aesthetic and brings beauty to the building and does a lot for the emotion of the employees, the owner, and it makes them feel good. With this type of renovation, I think you're able to do both. Meaning with synthetic turf and with solar, with a lot of the repurposed wood and things like that, there are all kinds of options that you have. And this isn't something that serves a purpose when it comes to social distancing. This is something that will be appreciated and used for years to come.
So we're going to share with you guys, we're working with a couple of different buildings in the Atlanta market. We're actually working with about 6 different companies, but some private schools, churches, as well as commercial buildings. So we're going to show you an example of what we have proposed for 2 buildings here in the Atlanta marketplace, where they want to have this outdoor as the new indoor, so that they can utilize that space and let their tenants in their building can either use this space to meet with clients, to have meetings with one another, and they can even take their laptop outside and work, which you'll see how this goes.
These are before pictures at Cumberland Center 2, over near the Cotton Galleria. And you can see that this is basically a glorified parking lot. This is the parking deck back here, and these are parking spaces, obviously. They do break it with this little planter here, and it does have a couple of tabletops out here with umbrellas, because there's a cafe in this side entrance to the building down on the ground level. And so they have a few places to sit, but not very many. I think in numbers we counted, maximum it's maybe a dozen to 15 places to sit. They've got some, normal kind of Atlanta, Georgia landscaping, not great looking out here, but it does provide a space. But it's not used really for anything. It's just, again, more of an aesthetic to the building. So they charged us with coming up with something creative, something that would allow much more seating, primarily for dining, primarily for the cafe, so that you get a lot more seats, but also for events and for the open office area idea. They want to have places where you can plug in your electronic device, your laptop, your phone, your notebook, and work out here. So we came up with a plan for them, and just to get oriented, here's that parking deck, the upper level of it, which of course stay in place. But this space right here, which is about 50 by 65, where you saw the cars parked. This was also just concrete. This was just a concrete walk that goes to the building and through the cafe area. These trellises were in place, and some of these trees were in place. This is just that grass area over there that we looked at. And what we suggested, and are suggesting, and they're pretty excited about it at this point, is coming back over a lot of this concrete with synthetic turf. And basically, the drainage is already in place. All we have to do is place that and allow the water to flow into that, and there are systems for that. We just have an underlayment that allows the water to go where it's supposed to go. We would add some planters and seat walls, so you could have a lot of folks out here. You could, depending on how many seat walls actually end up out here, you can have a couple of hundred people pretty easily right now. This also would be synthetic turf. It's just a separate area. We have some shade trees in both areas. These red umbrella shaped features can be just umbrella tables. Again, they can be tables of different kinds of furniture, whatever the owner chooses. Examples of that down here, you know, with sitting on possibly wood base, just to bring a different element, break up the synthetic turf. Native plantings would go in here, again, just tough, low maintenance plantings. Very drought resistant again, and we can actually, in this system, we could capture some water and reuse it. So.
And I think one of the, the idea behind this is, how can we make sure that we use this for many years to come? So the concept we came up with is, okay, well, we know we need a dining space. That's pretty simple. Well, how do we maximize some unused parking, put down the synthetic turf? So it creates a really amazing approach. And so there's a bit more of an experience as people walk out of the parking deck and into the space. It's very colorful. As far as furniture is concerned, there actually are a lot of different options out there when it comes to outdoor desks, fans that can be run by solar on top of some of these structures. And so we looked at a lot of those different things. And for this environment, we stuck with more of a dining option. But it has the ability to change into a lot of those different functions over time. We also implemented some water, the movement of water to create a little bit more of an ambience as people are sitting out there and going into the building. So yeah, I think it turned out really, really good.
Talk about the solar panels.
The structures can certainly have the solar cells on top and create their own energy to recharge a battery charger. You also typically place a few strategically located solar USB chargers throughout the site, so you have multiple places for that.
Yep. Yeah, and today, they literally jump on their own Wi-Fi in the office, come out, work in some of those environments, and there you can make those as it's not weatherproof, but expand the roof line, bring those furniture units in so that if it does happen to be a light sprinkle, you can control that so that people are not getting rained on. And if it gets really hot with those solar systems, you can power large fans and do some different things that normally you'd be limited to doing.
And the other thing, this area here, if you remember, was a turf area that had kind of declined. And by putting the synthetic turf in, going forward, you're actually saving money. So you've got the synthetic turf running through this area. And even though there's an investment on the front end, it's going to save money on the back end.
Yeah, good point, Debbie. So the synthetic turf, as far as the maintenance is concerned, is really, other than blowing it off, there are some sand that needs to be added to top, and that's something that probably needs to be replaced every 3 to 5 years, depending. But for the most part, you've reduced almost 80% of the care that is required in that space, which obviously reduces the need of irrigation and the need of in-depth landscape maintenance.
All right, so we're going to show you, and by the way, we do have, we're going to have Q&A at the end of the presentation. So I forgot to tell you, if you have questions, write them down, and then we will go through a Q&A. But we're going to share a second property with you. Same thing, company, Alliance Center One Alliance Center, sorry, was again looking for a way to utilize their outdoor space, concerned about how many people can be in the building with the social distancing, what can we do with this unused outdoor space to help us give people more space to work, to meet with clients, to have gatherings, etc. So this is the next one.
Again, into the before spaces. This one here is a kind of a northwest facing area. And it's very nice plantings and nice shade trees, so it's a shady spot. But really, the purpose it serves is just aesthetics at this point. It's just something that's going to be the foundation of the building, and so there's no place for people to enter or use this space. This over here is obviously just the big end of a really large median island. again, planted with trees, somewhat mulchy at this point, but something that's has no people use function to it at this point. So we thought about it, and again, they asked us what to do. Here's another space that we wanted to show this because it just kind of shows that there are these small niches in your landscape that can be repurposed for people to sit there. So we wanted to use the space. So we'll show you what we have come up with just conceptually. Here's the first space, with the nice shade trees in it. So it's a nice shady spot for people to gather. Again, we have the USB recharging stations, and you're real close to your Wi-Fi, and becomes a usable people space. And again, you're doing everything from walking to everything else in here. We would we don't show them here in the drawing, but we would have potentially some bubblers out in that rock stream there, to create some ambient noise, to create a little bit of white noise, to buffer out a little bit of the traffic noise, and just create a nice environment.
I think too, one of the reasons that, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, we decided to use what looks like either wood or some type of synthetic product, is that it's less disturbing. So it reduces the overall cost of what would be required to access this area. And we try to utilize a lot of what's already there.
But we're thinking recycled materials here. That's part of the green. In the overall site, you can get anywhere from about 9 to 12 points, lead points for all these applications together, which becomes pretty significant just to get the basic level. I think it's 42 points you have to get a LEED certification from the Green Building Council.
Yeah.
Here's that big island with mulch, repurposed a little bit, and of course it's got a high aesthetic value to it, but it's also a place again where people can go on a nice sunny day, or you could actually install, if you wanted to, some shelters. You could have these overhanging fabric is one of the things that become very popular, but different techniques, but at least a place to sit and use the space for, again, outside work and gathering.
And I think also, just from a pedestrian perspective, access across this motor court provides a bit more safety too.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it does. It's one thing they're actually looking at here are these lights that go across the pedestrian crossways that just continually blink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
This before was, I guess, a little signage area here at the front door of this building, and it's what we thought about doing is leaving quite a bit of this Mexican beach pebbles back here, and maybe just incorporating some granite cubes, 18 inches square, 24 inches square, and again, having the access somewhere in here would be one of these rechargers, and you'd just be able to come out here and work in a little niche area, in an area that's, and we've got the water, we've got the bubblers happening here again for the purpose of just making a nice environment, nice sound buffer for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the overall idea that there are these little places of property that are in areas where people are going to be accessing either an entrance and exit. So they make sense, and people sit down and they use them, whether it be a 15-minute deal or half a day. All that's available to them, and to make it a little bit more friendly. Sort of sitting there, you have the ambient sound of the water, and you really haven't done much to disturb the landscape. You dropped in, if you remember, this was a ground cover existing. All these were already there, so this would be recirculating bubbler on those, and these are just basically pieces of furniture that you're setting in the landscape for people to use.
All right, so we are going to do the Q&A now. I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And I know everyone's probably been muted while we were doing this. Thank you for that. So if you have a question, unmute yourself and let us know what your question is. Okay. Well,
I have a question.
okay, you have a question. What's your question?
So I guess my question would be, do you guys see available space that you can utilize or that an owner would want to utilize to create outdoor spaces for people to work? Is that a viable solution to some of the COVID challenges that we're in today? I take that as a definite maybe.
Sure, you're not muted.
Right. No, we're not muted. All right. Well, when you registered for this class, there was a box to check to get the CEU credits. If for any reason you did not check that box, email me, let me know, and we'll make sure that gets taken care of so that you do get your CEUs. Beyond that, thank you again for getting on, and I hope this is helpful for you. And IFMA is hosting a class every week, different subjects, different presenters. I encourage you to go to ifmaatlanta.org and go to the calendar of events, and it'll show you what all the classes are. And if you do have any questions that you didn't want to ask on here, everyone has my email and my phone number, so feel free to reach out, and we'll be happy to work with you in any way that we can. And beyond that, unless someone has something to say, we're gonna close it up and let you guys get back to work. All right. So I don't see anybody unmuting themselves, so we will say goodbye and hope to see all of you soon. I know we don't get to see each other in person, but
Thank you.
you're welcome, Reggie. Talk to you guys soon.